Well, hey everybody, and welcome back for some more remote learning with Mr. Delcourt. Today we're going to take a walk along the Eastern Trail looking for invasive plant species. I've got my sidekick Scarlett here with me. This is a class that we would have normally done if we were in together. We would learn about invasive plant species here in Maine, and then we'll go take a walk on the Eastern Trail and see just how many of these invasive plants are around us. It may surprise you, and you may never look at the Eastern Trail or our urban landscape the same way, knowing just how many of the plants around you are invasive. So stick with me. We're going to take a walk here and we'll find a whole bunch of them right along the Eastern Trail. Alright, so we haven't gone 10 feet up the trail here, and we've got our first invasive species. Right here behind me is Multiflora Rose. It's one of the species available for you for that profile you guys did for me. This stuff is all over the place in these broken landscapes. It produces these little rose hips here, these little fruits that birds and small mammals love to eat, and they'll go and drop these in their scat and spread this stuff all over the place. It's a pretty common story with a lot of the invasives that are out here on the Maine landscape. But here we go, Multiflora Rose, our first invasive species of the day. All right, a little ways down the trail, we got our second invasive species of the day. This is common buckthorn. And it's a shrubby bush that likes to grow along the edges of trails and broken landscapes. Common buckthorn right here along the Eastern Trail, another of our invasive species. Well, here we are along the Tams baseball field on the Eastern Trail here. We've come across our third invasive species of the day. Pretty good patch of Japanese knotweed here. A lot of folks would refer to this as bamboo, although it's not a true bamboo. It certainly resembles it, and this is a highly invasive plant that gets transported all over the place. It reproduces in its rhizome, meaning it can just send out roots and send up new plants. So if you pick up soil with any of those roots in it and move it around, you're inadvertently moving Japanese knotweed with it. And it gets moved around in contaminated soil all the time. You see it growing along long sections of roadside, and that's because the contaminated fill was brought in there. So what we have here is most likely fill that was brought in when they built this trail, brought Japanese knotweed right with it. This plant was originally brought to North America from Asia as an ornamental plant for gardens, and big mistake, it has escaped and it's absolutely everywhere. Chances are you've seen this all over town. Highly invasive plant, Japanese knotweed, growing right along the side of the Eastern Trail. All right, got our fourth invasive plant of the day. Looking down the Eastern Trail this way, basically all we can see the entire way is my arch nemesis, Norway Maple. Check this out. This palmately simple leaf, really long petiole, about as wide as it is tall. Classic Norway Maple. And these are all escaped trees that probably came from seeds that came off cultivars planted in people's yards in these neighborhoods. They blow off into the woods in the wind, and next thing you know, you've got a pure stand of Norway Maple, and it's out competing native trees like red maple and even sugar maple that could be growing in here. So there you go. Scarlett found a nice Norway maple leaf. Nice job, Scarlett. So Norway maple absolutely everywhere around us in Saco, not just the Eastern Trail. It's our fourth invasive species of this walk, and we have barely gotten anywhere. We're still right here behind Tams. So Norway maple. All right, here we go. We've got our fifth and sixth invasive species of the day growing right behind me here. We actually have an invasive growing on top of an invasive. Now let me explain. We've got glossy buckthorn right here, close relative of the common buckthorn we found back there. And growing right on top of it, all around it, is this vine called Asiatic bittersweet. And Asiatic bittersweet is some bad stuff that shades out our native trees. It grows all amongst their canopies, shades them out and kills them off. In this case, it may be shading out and killing off another invasive plant, which wouldn't be as big a deal. But when this thing gets up in those native trees and gets covering the landscape, bad news. So glossy buckthorn and Asiatic bittersweet for our fifth and sixth invasive species of this short walk along the Eastern Trail. All right, a little ways further up the trail here, and we've come across our seventh invasive plant of the day. Right here we've got shrubby honeysuckle, and shrubby honeysuckle is found everywhere in southern Maine, all out through the woods and old cow pastures that have grown up and now look like forests, but the understory can be completely choked with this stuff. An invasive species produces a little red berry that, common story, those songbirds love to eat and drag all over the landscape in their scat. So shrubby honeysuckle growing right here. All right, well, here we are with our eighth invasive species of the day. We've got Japanese barberry growing down in here. This is a really prickly plant that spreads all throughout the forest, on the forest floor, and if you're out here barefoot walking, you would know it in a hurry. Walking through that Japanese barberry, super prickly, nasty little plant. You will see barberry planted in people's front yards absolutely everywhere. It's a very common landscaping plant, even though it's super invasive, and people need to stop doing that. They're spreading barberry all over the landscape by having it in their yards and allowing those songbirds to eat the fruits and spread it off across the landscape. So Japanese barberry, this is going to turn really kind of maroonish red in the fall. You may even have it in your front yard. Keep an eye out for Japanese barberry. Well, Scarlett and I want to thank you for coming along with us today on this invasive plant walk along the Eastern Trail. I always feel like a little bit of a Debbie Downer introducing you guys to all the invasives along this trail, because it can really change the way you view the landscape. I mean, instead of just taking a walk along the trail and taking in all the plants and assuming that's what's supposed to be around, it can make you more aware of the fact that there's invasive plants all around us and the effect that they can have on our landscape. So Scarlett and I think everybody should do their part to control invasive plants. Show them, Scarlett. There you go. Scarlett's taking care of some of this Japanese knotweed along the trail here. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate all your hard work this year with our remote learning. And we'll see you guys around.
Bye-bye.